In this video, you will face a Russian monster tank on the Green Mile of Death and watch it burn. You will witness the impossible survival of a Ukrainian driver trapped in the hell of Pokrovsk who refused to die. You'll see an American shredder that eats minefields for breakfast and the hard truth about Western combat boats clashing with Russians. Monsters, heroes, and heavy metal. This is your Frontline debrief. If I told you what really happened, you'd say I've watched too many movies.
This story starts near Pokrovsk, where Russian forces managed to breach the defensive line and punch a wedge deep into Ukrainian-controlled Donbass. The guys from the 1st Separate Assault Regiment received a brutally difficult task: to cut off that wedge and stop the enemy from digging in. A dozen people sweat over maps at HQ. Tank crews mount mine rollers, mechanics, up to their elbows in grease, prep the BTR-4 Bucephalus. The assault troops nervously wait for the go-ahead. So, what does a real assault look like? From a battalion commander down to the soldier inside the vehicle? Where does the order end? And where does character take over? The spearhead of this operation is 4 BTR-4Es.
This is an armored vehicle. The official claim is that the frontal armor can withstand a direct hit from a 14.5mm round, while the side armor should handle 12.7mm. The crew consists of 3, the vehicle commander, who can also control the combat module, the driver, and the gunner in the back. Inside, there are 7 seats for troops.
So that's 28 assault soldiers plus the vehicle crews getting ready for a mission that's going to be insanely dangerous. But these Bucephaluses aren't just expected to survive. They're supposed to do serious damage too. How's that going to play out?
This is the control system for the combat module. What makes this machine special is right here. This thing, the BM7 Perus combat module. A legend. It's got a 30mm autocannon, a grenade launcher, and it can carry anti-tank guided missiles. And the guys say one of the most helpful tools on board is the PKT, a tank-mounted Kalashnikov machine gun.
While the troops are cleaning their rifles and packing their assault gear, the chief of staff, running on nothing but coffee, goes over every single step of the mission.
The plan is to go in with 4 Bucephaluses and 2 tanks. First, one tank moves separately along this route to carry out a distraction. Its job is to pull enemy attention entirely onto itself. After that, the second tank joins the column with the BTRS. Its task is to hit a specific basement where enemy forces are dug in.
Now, the assault groups are receiving their orders. And you've got a mission too. Hit that like button to support stories like this.
Each BTR has its own task for deploying infantry, and each follows its own route with decoy actions along the way. Every drop-off point must be covered by fire from the 30mm cannon and the PKT machine gun, and the deployment has to happen as fast as possible. After that, the BTR moves on, about 1.5 kilometers, to the next assigned location. At that stage, our regimental artillery kicks in with smoke. Our vampires deploy smoke screens. Plus, one soldier from the BTR tosses smoke out of the hatch to simulate a drop-off at that spot too.
But even the mission itself is a huge risk, for both command and infantry. Any mechanized assault in a convoy is a sitting duck for the enemy. And before the troops even reach the landing point, drones are already in the sky, artillery is getting dialed in, and the kill zone is heating up. And it gets worse. Even before facing the full firepower of the Russians, the troops are already hitting roadblocks. Literally. Commanders have to improvise. The tank crews ran into something they absolutely did not expect.
They're saying there are mines on the road, but we already flew drones over it. There was nothing.
That kind of surprise could have wrecked the entire mission. Luckily, the tankers had installed mine rollers just in case.
We rolled forward and then, boom, the first blast goes off. I look, one of the rollers flew off. We kept moving. Second explosion, then a third. We stopped. I called the commander. Here's what's going on. He says, "Can you keep going?" I say, "Well, technically, yes." We pressed on, cut the corner, tried to rejoin the road, and hit another mine. I radioed in, "This section's mined too. We've already lost 2 rollers." The commander said, "Pull back." That setup we'd rigged for mine clearing. It was damaged. If we had kept going, we'd be picking up mines with our tracks or belly plate. These are magnetic mines.
So, just like that, the tanks are out of the game. But right behind them is the column of BTRS, heading straight for that same mined road. Commanders make a call on the fly.
BTRS, all BTRS, listen up. Before the intersection, veer off, cut across the field. I saw the first and second crews had already peeled off and were driving through fields. And we're like, whatever, we'll stick to the road. We're brave guys, real tough guys. Yeah, but hey, all went well.
They made it through the mined stretch. But the next obstacle was no better: sand. The ground ahead was soft and hard to navigate for wheeled vehicles. That's where Bucephalus started to show weakness. Same as any armored car on that kind of terrain. Don't forget to subscribe to learn more about the vehicles fighting on Ukraine's side.
This BTR wasn't exactly built for sand. The vehicle started bogging down. We had to lock all the diffs and engage every axle just to keep moving. I managed to push through. But the fourth crew, who were behind us, told me later. They almost rear-ended us. He said, "You finally moved, man, and thank God, because I was stuck and nearly on your tail." As soon as you got going, I threw it into full drive, rocked it back and forth, and crawled out.
But the sand was just the warm-up. That brief delay gave the Russians enough time to bring in more FPV drones to the BTR route, and the column started taking hits.
Oh, direct hit on the lead vehicle. First one just got hit. Before we could even drop off the infantry, boom, we got hit. Smoke filled the cabin. Nasty smell everywhere. Honestly, I thought the tire caught fire or something. It smelled like burning rubber. Tolyan asked me, "Are we on fire?" I said, "Nah, just smoking." We kept going. Got hit again and again. After the fifth strike, I stopped counting. When we finally halted to unload the infantry, another powerful strike landed. Coolant started leaking across the windshield. Our driver goes, "We're done. We're not going anywhere." I told him, "If we don't move, we're gonna catch hell from command."
Despite the multiple hits, the first BTR completed its mission. Armor and added protection did their job, but the crew of the second BTR had an even harder fate waiting.
The second team dropped troops at their point, started heading home, and took a critical hit.
At this point, the command post could do little except bark updates over the radio. It was now down to the crew's survival skills. The mission turned from assault to escape. What played out next was a front row seat to a soldier's worst day.
We dropped the infantry. On our way back, my BTR just stopped.
The BTR, driven by a mechanic with the call sign Sailor, was hit by a wave of FPV drones. One of the hits completely disabled the vehicle. The crew had no choice but to abandon it.
We know one crew member, a sapper tasked with launching smoke during the drop-off, was likely killed. Another, the gunner, is currently listed as missing. No contact, no sightings, he just disappeared. The driver, he's still out there with the infantry, holding the line. I dismount, and now I'm a rifleman, an assault trooper. But honestly, I'd rather be inside armor, even if that armor's gone. The BTR came to a stop in the middle of a field, and between that field and the Ukrainian position where our guys were holding ground, he still had about 800 meters to cross. While I was moving from the vehicle to the tree line, it felt like a Hollywood war movie. First, something was dropped right on me, wounded me. Then I kept moving, and an FPV drone came in, hit my legs. The earlier drop injured my hands. I kept pushing forward. Then, from the other side of a tank ditch, small arms fire opened up. I dropped into the grass and weeds and just laid there. I could hear the bullets zipping by. Phew, phew, phew. I thought, "Sailor, is this where it ends? Will this field be your grave and you go missing forever?" But I told myself, no, this can't be it.
Sailor's story didn't end there. In fact, what happened next could rival any Hollywood action flick. Wounded, bleeding, and alone, Sailor made it to friendly positions. But evacuation wasn't possible, so instead, he fought. Despite his injuries, he helped repel multiple Russian counterattacks side by side with infantry. And this didn't go on for a few hours. Not a day. He held out for 2 whole weeks.
Shrapnel here, and here. I dug them out myself, with a stick, wrapped up the wounds best I could. I was already in a dugout by then.
There was no time to rest or recover. The enemy was already tightening the noose. Russians were trying to push through again and again, but they paid for it.
I'll tell you straight. A Russian comes at me, I light him up. Bang, bang, bang. He drops. I guess their command knew we were there, but they didn't tell the troops. One guy shouts to me, "Brother, I'm Russian. I'm one of yours." I pop out and unload maybe 10 rounds at him. I just said, "Yeah, sure, one of ours."
Despite the chaos, the pain, and the losses, the mission was a success. Ukraine managed to cut off Russian logistics in this sector and complicate their tactical position. The BTR assault, supported by bomber drones and coordinated infantry drops, proved effective, even with the setbacks. Command made the right calls under pressure. Infantry deployed at the correct drop zones without a single loss. As for Sailor, after holding the line for 2 weeks, he was finally evacuated and handed over to medics. For his bravery and professionalism, he was nominated for a state award.
Посередньо на полі бою. Морячук
Sailor accomplished an extremely difficult task. He stayed loyal to the mission until the end, loyal to his comrades. He will be recognized with a national award, and there are many more like him, whose stories haven't yet been told. But they too will be nominated for honors for this operation.
This is just one episode among countless others happening every day on the battlefields of the Russo-Ukrainian War. Most of them never make it to the screen, but Ukraine holds the line and keeps fighting. And we'll keep showing you what that fight looks like. Thank you for watching. Army TV is visiting the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade Anna of Kiev today. We've got a full unpacking of the Leopard 2A4 tank. The guys trained in France and Poland, all fully funded by Paris, including the entire equipment package for this brigade. They provided the Leclercs, but the Germans also stepped up and gave us Leopard 2A4s.
This is the Leopard 2A4, a German-made tank our partners supplied to help defend our country.
What would you say about its specs? The gun, for example?
The main gun is 120 millimeters. Compared to our old Soviet tanks, it's extremely accurate. The key is just to properly set your shot. And it hits the same point every time, no matter what type of round you're firing.
What about the armor? I understand the dynamic protection is already your addition, right?
Yeah, the reactive armor is our Ukrainian modification. Same type of armor we use on our T-64s and T-72s, the old Soviet models.
Support the channel with a like and subscribe.
Simply put, this is the commander's onboard computer, with a control handle that's actually really convenient to hold. My main workspace is the commander's site. It's up top. And the joystick I use to control it. There's the radio, the power settings to turn the sight on or off, and I can switch views to see what the gunner sees, just to confirm or pick a more priority target.
I see everything's in German inside.
Yeah,
So how do you even know what's what?
we just memorized everything during training, in German, and that's it. At first it was super uncomfortable, but honestly, most of it's intuitive. The instructors themselves studied in German, so they knew every device, every switch, all labeled in German. You get used to it. You start memorizing the terms, everything's literally in German. And since I can speak a bit of Polish at an intermediate level, and my English is decent, maybe above average now, or maybe just average, I definitely have found English easier. But once the technical terminology starts flying, you're like, yeah, that's it, that's the word. A lot of it just sticks in muscle memory. Later, when an instructor tells you, turn this, that, and that on, you just go, okay, that one, that one. And you already know exactly what does what. Over time, it becomes natural. Even when you're chatting with the crew and something's not working, you'll say like, this thing's acting up, how do I fix it? And they'll toss in a few German words and you're like, wait, seriously? And they go, yeah, seriously. And you just laugh, like, ah, damn, I didn't know that. And everyone gets it right away.
Okay, name a few of those German words you use here.
Verkantung, Kraftschrichttein. There are modes, Standbein, Beobachtung, Turmaus, stuff like that. Sight here. You see that everywhere. That's one of the first things you've got to memorize. Once you know those, everything else starts to make sense.
And how do you view and control all that?
Horizontal, vertical axis.
Sight to here?
Right. Beobachtung means observation or standby. Standby in roughly means full operational power. And Turmaus is manual control mode. I'm the senior driver mechanic for the Leopard 2A4. The vehicle runs excellent, very maneuverable, very fast. Its handling is really light. The headset, the comms with the commander, they hold up very well. It's driven with an automatic gearbox. To my right is the handbrake. That's the hatch, close open, the night light and the steering wheel. To my left are the fuses, the heater switches, the pumps, the ignition lock, the start button, tachometer, speedometer, temperature, fuel tank. There are 3 small windows here. That's where we have all the breakers. The ones that might trip and the ones that shouldn't. The lights turn on. The emergency instrument lighting comes on.
Tell me, how does your loading go?
It goes like this. One hand here, the other hand here, one foot here, the other foot here. And you take this stance.
Okay, you need to load. What do you do?
The commander gives me the order. I control the loader's panel. I open my magazine. I take the appropriate round. I close the magazine, bring the round in, press fire, and wait to shoot.
What's the rate of fire like?
The biggest combat run I had? I put rounds out 7 times at rapid fire.
7 in a minute?
No, over 3 to 4 minutes.
Theoretically, how many could you sustain?
You can do 15.
Heavy rounds?
From 22 kilograms, approximately 48.5 pounds.
You got a bit pumped?
A little. There's no really tricky physical work here. The computer does a lot. If something trips, you press, load, return to combat position and wait to fire.
So is a Leopard and a T-64 like a Lada and a Mercedes?
Like everyone says? Yeah. It's like hopping into a new foreign car. Comfort? Work-wise, it's comfortable. More room than a T-64.
I get the impression Western kit is just roomier, because in the Soviet stuff there's basically none.
More room, because there's space for a loader. We have a 4th crew member here, the loader. In Soviet designs, you get an autoloader, a mechanism, an automatic loader. That's why there's less space in them.
And what about crew safety?
Crew safety. Yeah, that's one of the key things here. The ammo is stored in a separate armored compartment. If there's a direct hit, sure, the crew will take a concussion from the blast. But all the shells will detonate inside that sealed container, and it won't kill the crew. We've already had real cases. Our guys went out to combat positions, they got hit, FPV drones struck them, and the Leopard held up. It's seriously tough. This machine can take punishment. The thermal imager here is amazing, honestly. I'd never used a thermal scope before in my life. When I turned it on for the first time, I was like, damn, that's awesome, that's really awesome. You zoom in, zoom out, move around, and you're just grinning like an idiot. I don't even know how to describe some of it. It's all emotions. When you sit in it, feel the engine roar, it moves, you fire a shot, you're like, hell yeah, that's power. You just feel it. That's how it should be told, with emotion. I can't just sit here and talk about it flat and serious. It doesn't fit.
That's actually a great way to tell it.
Well, I mean, it's just a damn cool machine. I like driving it, and honestly, I like fighting in it too. Yeah, I really do.
You know, it's kinda unfair. Some tankers are on T-64s or T-72s, and you got the Leopard right away.
Well, damn.
Not your fault, huh?
Yeah, not my fault. Like, guys, I didn't choose it. They came and told me, you'll be on this one. I said, okay. They gave it to me. So I took it. What's there is what's there. I mean, what can I even say to that?
So how did you end up in the 155th in the first place?
From the very start?
Yeah.
I came, signed up, went to the draft office. They told me, there's a new brigade being formed. I said, all right, fine. Literally the next day, they drove me there.
And you trained in France, right?
Half in France, half in Poland. Because in Poland, they've got their own Leopard training program. One of the biggest in Europe. Maybe the biggest in Europe, actually. I don't remember exactly. Didn't really look into it that deep. But yeah, no. It's the biggest one. Yeah, the biggest Leopard training school in Europe. Focused purely on these tanks.
How come you know Polish?
I'm from Lviv, man. Over there. It's easy. You get Polish tourists coming in all the time. I used to work as a waiter once. That's where I picked up a bit of the language. Plus, I used to visit my grandma's village not far from the Polish border. She'd say some words in Polish here and there, and I'd be like, hey, I know that one. And that's how it stuck. It just came naturally. 100 Russian tanks and APCs burned on a tiny patch of land near Dobropilia. That stretch of Ukrainian soil is now known as the Green Mile. The assault starts in typical fashion with an intense artillery barrage. But it's not the shelling that surprises the Ukrainian units holding the line. The twist this time is the use of a new type of assault tank, the Shaggy tanks. They're nearly impossible to destroy, and they're built so that the extra armor doesn't interfere with turret rotation. You're about to see this design in action. They advance toward Ukrainian positions in small groups of 3 to 5 tanks from different directions. At first glance, especially through drone footage, they look like regular tanks with cages, the kind you've seen in our earlier videos, but they're not. So what makes a Shaggy tank different? There's no special troop capsule or ramp, because these aren't made to transport infantry. They are the assault element, capable of operating solo or in a convoy. Before we show whether Ukrainian forces managed to stop the Shaggy tanks, hit like and subscribe. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm won't show this to others who need to see it. Ukrainian drone operators engage the convoy. But the drones either fall near the Shaggy tanks due to EW interference, or their shaped charges fail to penetrate the armor because of the hundreds of metal rods sticking out and the dreadlocks of chains and cables hanging everywhere. That's exactly why Shaggy tanks aren't afraid of drones. Their job is the opposite, to attract as many Ukrainian drones as possible, while pushing forward with a mine roller and breaching dense Ukrainian defenses so other vehicles can pass through. So what do the Ukrainians do? First, artillery comes into play, but hitting a moving tank is extremely difficult. Still, the first Shaggy tank gets hit. But finishing it off takes a whole swarm of drones. Another Shaggy tank is taken out, and again, it takes dozens of drones to burn through the armor. Another convoy gets stuck at a natural obstacle, and the shaggy tanks along with other vehicles become perfect targets for drones. It looks like the heavy cage structure reduces mobility so badly, even a small puddle becomes an obstacle. The crews of the tanks that got stuck and the infantry riding in the BTRS scatter and hide in the tree line. Ukrainian drone operators are forced to waste time tracking them down and finishing them off. While this massacre is still unfolding, leave a comment. Do you agree that these massive cages are a mistake, making tanks too heavy and killing their maneuverability? Just got hit! But look, while we and Ukrainian drones were chasing Russians through the woods, the first shaggy tank managed to break into the village. Drones don't scare it. They explode, but barely scratch it. The shaggy tank opens fire on Ukrainian positions using direct aim. It might seem like a slow and clumsy machine, but underneath all that armor is a T-80 BVM. Its gunner sees targets like he's watching TV, a stabilized sighting system, thermal imaging, laser rangefinder, all giving a clear picture even through dust or darkness. The ballistic computer adjusts the shot in seconds. Add an autoloader to the mix. The shaggy tank can fire 6 to 8 rounds per minute, instantly switching targets. For anyone hiding in bunkers or concrete shelters, this means one thing: the shelter stops being a shelter. It just fit us, but we got lucky. So far, the Russian plan seems to be working. Shaggy tanks are pushing through minefields not only on roads, but across open fields. Right behind them, armored convoys with standard cages burst into the gray zone, carrying infantry. The convoys come in fast and from multiple directions. Dozens of Ukrainian drones, waiting for them in the sky. Bearing 260, course 2, fire. If not for the Kropiva system, Ukrainian artillery and drones simply wouldn't be able to keep up with Russian movements. Kropiva is the brain of Ukrainian artillery. It's not a corporate product. It was built by soldiers and volunteers. At its core is a map that updates target coordinates in real time. The gunner sees the target, the commander gives the order, Kropiva calculates everything, and within seconds the shell is on its way. What used to take minutes now takes seconds. The Green Mile is turning into a boiling cauldron. But there are just too many targets, so part of one convoy reaches the village and manages to unload infantry before being destroyed. The drones are doing their job, but they need backup on the ground. 2 Ukrainian tanks are sent in to clear the village. They literally demolish the houses where Russians are holed up. But it's not just Ukrainian drones circling above the Green Mile. The tanks do their job fast and roll back just as fast. Meanwhile, what's left of a second Russian convoy breaks through the Green Mile and reaches the outskirts of Mirnograd. The name of this city literally means peaceful town. But a few Russian APCs carrying assault troops break through to the residential areas on the eastern side, and the name quickly loses its meaning. They pushed in too deep. There's hardly a chance for any of them to survive. Still, the Russian command sees this whole operation, launched by the Shaggy tanks, as a success. So they send in light infantry next, riding motorbikes and trucks. If you don't follow orders, if you refuse your missions, I swear on my mother and my children, I'll personally shoot each and every one of you. You're all in this now. You animals. All of you. Except that one man. The rest, animals. Their task? To blaze through the Green Mile and hold the village. They race through fire and smoke from burning vehicles. In the brush along the road, their wounded comrades lie screaming for help. The dead stay silent. But the silence of the dead is louder than the roar of motorcycle engines. So every one of them knows what's waiting ahead. YouTube doesn't allow us to show all the footage from this assault. And we have to be selective with what we show from the aftermath. But you already know what happened here. I can't get across the open. They're all breaded. A small group of light infantry actually makes it. Not everything can be done with drones, so the clearing is carried out by Ukrainian special forces. House by house. As you can see, every Ukrainian house has its own war story, and while that clearing operation continues, a fresh batch of Russians is being sent to the front. In the workshops near the front lines, new grill cage models are being built. There's still no better protection from drones. Ukrainian fighters say this war changes every single day. You can feel it even after just a week's leave. Each day brings a new invention and a new tragedy. Subscribe and watch history being rewritten in real time.
What if the Bradley were replaced by its grandpa, the M113, or even by its descendant, the modern MaxxPro APC? That's only possible in exceptional cases. See, all three of these American vehicles are armored and armed, but they're built for different missions. War forces them to adapt. You're about to see them all in action, and decide for yourself which one's truly valuable on the battlefield, and which one just guzzles fuel.
Go, go, go!
While Bradley can carry up to 6 infantry troops, it was designed to fight with tanks and against tanks. Here, a Ukrainian Bradley sets out on a combat mission paired up with a Leopard 2A6. Once they're right up against Russian positions, this sweet duo unleashes a storm of fire. Mission complete. After that, Bradley and Leo calmly pull back to friendly lines. Surprise, yes, the commander of this Bradley is a woman, and this isn't the only time Bradley has teamed up with a tank. Here, the American vehicle smashes Russian positions alongside an Abrams. Good teamwork. The M2 Bradley is an infantry fighting vehicle used by American Armored Brigade combat teams. The main backbone of these brigades is made up of Abrams tanks and Bradleys. Other vehicles like the Humvee are used for support roles. Look, here's a textbook Bradley mission, just how US generals envisioned it. A Ukrainian gunner spots a Russian T-80B VM tank in thermal view from 400 meters. One shot, and a direct hit using a TOW anti-tank guided missile. The raging 25mm Bushmaster cannon also deserves a shout-out. It might not pierce tank armor, but it shreds the tank's external gear. Like in that famous video where the Ukrainian Bradley crew couldn't use their ATGM due to close range and constant movement. But the gunner, one hand clutching his steel nerves, the other squeezing the trigger, went for it.
The first burst, I aimed under the turret. The second, into the engine, trying to set it on fire. Then I fired at the road wheels to throw a track. But that didn't work, so I switched from armor-piercing to HE rounds and started hammering the sensors and optics.
But Bushmaster doesn't just tear through tanks, it rips apart any armored vehicle. Here's how it performs at a distance of 1,500 meters. We believe these combat clips of the M2 Bradley in Ukraine will forever go down in the history of war. Hit like if you agree. And besides, your like punches through the YouTube algorithm like a 25mm Bushmaster round through Russian armor. Neither the M113 nor the MaxxPro can pull that off. They play in a different league, but they can do what the M2 Bradley can't. Let's break it down, starting with the M113. This grandpa belongs to the APC class, Armored Personnel Carrier.
Faster, faster.
Heavy calibers go straight through its armor. But it can still protect against .50 caliber machine gun fire or shrapnel at distances up to 100 meters. Any closer, and even .50 caliber rounds pierce its aluminum shell. But 50 years ago, that level of protection was enough to evacuate the wounded or drop off 11 paratroopers into combat. How about today? Look, just a year ago, missions like that were possible. As the infantry dismounts, the M113 gunner lays down suppressive fire with the M2 HB .50 cal, a heavy machine gun based on John Browning's century-old design. But today, frontline assault missions with the M113 are nearly impossible in Ukraine. Even basic runs for evacuations, rotations, or resupplying food and ammo become incredibly risky if the position is more than a short distance from enemy lines. Drones now outnumber birds in the sky. Sometimes they even compete for airspace. And on the ground, drones waiting to ambush a target are more common than rocks. That's why every single mission now requires detailed planning, and preferably bad weather to throw off drone operators. Here's what happens when an M113 gets hit by drones. If it weren't for a tank, that vehicle would have stayed in the field forever. Luckily, it was recovered and repaired.
After taking damage, the vehicle was sent to the factory for repairs.
Now it's back in action. But take a look at the soldier with a shotgun. That's to fight off drones. And yet they're still far from the front line. So no, the M113 is not a tank, not even close. And it's not meant for storming enemy positions. Its strengths lie in simplicity and spaciousness. And most importantly, the M113 can be quickly adapted, even for today's conditions. But seriously now, these are rare shots for now, but in 6 months or a year, this might be standard. We'll explain what's going on in a moment. But first, hit subscribe, because that keeps us going and helps us bring you the best stories from the front. Thanks. So here's what's happening. A ground robot is dispatched to evacuate a wounded soldier. The mission began at night and continues into daylight, as you can see. The remotely operated platform successfully returns with the casualty on board. And here it's met by an M113. Watch. The robot drives into the APC like it's pulling into a garage. Now the M113 has to haul ass. Its extra armor might survive 1 or 2 FPV drones if it's lucky. But if more birds show up, well, you know what happens next. So the M113 gets out of the danger zone fast, carrying the robot and the wounded soldier on board. But if it had been a MaxxPro, the mission would have been impossible. Just look at that ramp. You'd better be healthy and strong to sprint up and down it, and feel the atmosphere of war for yourself. Troop drop-off and dismount, 11 seconds. Boarding, 10 seconds. Move out, 18 seconds in. The first FPV drone strike. Another 58 seconds later, the second hit. Luckily, everyone made it home alive, but one soldier lost both legs to injuries. The MaxxPro is an MRAP, mine-resistant ambush protected vehicle. It was designed not to be a tank, but to protect the crew from mines, IEDs, and ambushes. The whole idea is to save the soldiers inside, even if the vehicle itself gets blown up. Check out its V-shaped hull, the key to its survivability. The blast wave from an explosion is deflected to the sides, not straight into the cabin. That greatly reduces the force that reaches the crew. As you can see, the MaxxPro's chassis isn't protected. After a major blast, the vehicle usually has to be evacuated or abandoned altogether. Its wheels can get blown off completely. But the people inside? They're much more likely to survive because they're sitting in a protected capsule. It's also armed with a Modus 50 caliber. But like the M113, the MaxxPro is rarely used in assaults anymore. Instead, a different strength emerged on the battlefield: speed. If you've ever wanted to floor it with no speed limits, the Frontline is your dream road. No cops out here. Oops. Well, there's something else instead. Just seconds after rolling out for a troop rotation mission, this duo looks like a couple of deer crossing the Bavarian prince's hunting estate. The MaxxPro can hit 105 kilometers per hour.
Motherfucker.
So no, it's not some slow lumbering bus. It's a legit armored road vehicle. Some sources even say it can reach 120 kilometers per hour. And looking at these clips, with shells bursting all around, you'd think the MaxxPro was going 150 kilometers per hour. But the high center of gravity increases the risk of rollover when maneuvering over rough terrain. And as you can see, maneuvering under fire is constant, so still feel like speeding through the war zone? For evacuation missions, the MaxxPro isn't exactly ideal. That steep ramp and narrow path into the capsule aren't doing anyone any favors. But when your comrades' lives are on the line, you muscle through. So on this battlefield, the MaxxPro is a fast and reliable steed, the kind every Cossack dreams of. When the ground explodes under its wheels, the MaxxPro absorbs the blast, shields its crew, and gives them a shot at seeing the next sunrise. The M113 is a humble lifesaver. It doesn't seek glory, but it gets people out through explosions and smoke. Inside its roomy hull, lives are saved. And when needed, the M113 adapts to any condition. Who knows what else it's capable of? The M2 Bradley is the knockout punch. Even now, when the skies are thick with swarms of FPV drones, it's ready to move forward, spot the enemy first, and hit hard. Its cannon and tow missiles clear the path for infantry and tanks. But Bradley isn't just great because of its firepower. It can also handle troop rotations and medevac missions. Seems like the M2 Bradley is that all-purpose warrior every army dreams of. That's why it comes out on top among the heroes of this story. By the way, this is not the only case of women fighting in war. On our channel, you will find videos about how women in the Ukrainian army feel during the war, from problems with acceptance by their comrades to stories about living with injuries received in battle. Does Bradley have a future? Look, due to shortages in armored vehicles, Russian forces often use civilian transport for both assaults and evacuations. Sometimes they even pull out the wounded on motorbikes. There's no way that soldiers making it to a field hospital. And that's exactly why Russian losses are so much higher. Is this a sustainable approach? For example, the Washington Army National Guard's 81st Stryker Brigade Combat Team is planning to replace its Stryker fleet with smaller, more mobile infantry squad vehicles, ISVs. We're talking about the high-mobility M1301 buggies, built on the Chevrolet Colorado ZR2 platform. Depending on the variant, they can carry up to 9 troops. The Pentagon's logic? If the buggy keeps moving, it's harder for a drone to hit. Plus, thanks to its compact size and lightweight frame, you can load them in bulk onto CH-47 Chinook or UH-60 Blackhawk helicopters. Eureka, right? Well, it does sound awesome. Stuff a chopper full of buggies and fly them straight into combat. But not in Ukraine. It's hard to imagine that an open-frame vehicle can outrun drones or shield troops from shrapnel, mines, or small arms fire. Meanwhile, the real war forces a very different kind of adaptation. That's where Russia's Tsar grills come in. Makeshift troop pods welded in frontline workshops. These armored capsules, complete with ramps for infantry and crew, have evolved into pretty rugged units. Sure, they slow down the tank and limit its ability to fire, but they can carry several assault troops. The price? Under $10,000 per unit. Now sure, no one's walking away from a tank blast or a direct hit by a 155mm artillery shell. But here's the thing, those grill cages can take dozens of FPV drone hits and keep the crew alive. On top of that, Russia now fields shaggy tanks. No pods this time, just chains and cables rigged around the hull to interfere with drone targeting. These beasts don't carry infantry, but they can plow through minefields and charge enemy lines without support. So, is this what the future of infantry fighting vehicles looks like? Let us know in the comments. Do grill cage tanks have a real future? Or are we just witnessing a bizarre one-off phenomenon? Thanks for weighing in.
The crew is currently at combat readiness. An aerial target was detected, and we're preparing to engage.
Sounds tense? That's because it is. Russian forces are trying to destroy the American-made patrol boat Ukrainians are using to guard their coastal waters. And unfortunately, sometimes they succeed. Over 11 years of war, Ukraine has lost 3/4 of its naval fleet. That's a horrifying stat. But don't lose hope just yet. Hear that sound? It's the waves being cut by 90 combat boats, handed over to Ukraine by NATO countries. Today, you'll learn how Ukrainian sailors are putting platforms like the RAB, Sea Ark Dauntless, Island and Navy 18WP to work, and whether they've proven effective in modern warfare. Expect the unfiltered truth straight from the sailors themselves. And at the end, stick around, there's a surprise story, a morale-boosting mascot that keeps spirits high even under fire. The Ukrainian Navy doesn't just fight on water. Their battle extends into the skies. And according to the sailors themselves, the threats from above can often be worse than the ones beneath the keel.
This happens almost every time we're on duty. We're under constant threat.
During one mission at sea, a Russian drone attack began. Things escalated quickly, but there's no panic here. These sailors are experienced, hardened by war. Everyone knows their station and what to do. After all, as the old saying goes, fear is in the eyes, but the hands get to work.
We engage targets very often due to the increased frequency of enemy air attacks. There have been cases where aerial targets entered our kill zone and were successfully neutralized.
The most pressure falls on the commander during an alert. He coordinates every combat post and oversees mission execution. So if you watched naval war movies as a kid and dreamed of commanding a fearless crew, maybe listen to this first.
When there's a threat, the commander gives the order to increase speed and boost the engine's RPM. If you hear us hitting max speed, it means something's wrong. The commander doesn't have to explain what the threat is. He just issues orders to the mechanics to prepare the engines, and then he directly commands the other combat posts.
If you're enjoying this and want more people to see the truth, hit that like button so YouTube knows to recommend it to others. And one more thing. If you think shooting down drones from a boat is easier just because the river's calmer than the sea, you're dead wrong. Firing a machine gun at a shahed from a moving patrol boat is like trying to hit a target while balancing on a hoverboard. Don't believe it? Watch this.
It's a boat. It's not as stable as being on land. On land, you plant your feet and you're solid. But out here, it sways. The commander, whoever's at the helm, has to control the boat, angle it the right way, so the gunner can fire at the shahed.
The Russians have localized shahed production, and they're now launching them by the hundreds across Ukraine. When Ukrainian crews try to shoot them down from boats, the sky turns into the mouth of a volcano spewing fire.
This was last year. We were patrolling on the Kiev Sea Reservoir. It was our usual route. That was the first big attack. There were 140 of them. We shot a bit and watched our air defense work. Looked pretty nice.
Taking down even one target is no easy task. It takes timing, control, and a whole lot of lead. You need skill, not spray and pray. And just imagine trying to shoot while the boat keeps rocking back and forth.
Way too many, because on average it takes about 60 rounds per target, give or take.
To make things harder, the Russians are getting smarter. Their drones are adjusting flight paths mid-air to dodge fire, forcing Ukrainian gunners to adapt every second.
They used to follow the riverbed into the Kiev Sea Reservoir. They'd follow the same route. But now that they've figured out where they're getting hit, they change direction. It'll be flying straight at you. Then suddenly veer left or right, wherever it's easier for them.
But Western boats aren't falling behind. Some of them are now equipped with sound-sensitive systems that help pinpoint where the drone is coming from.
Yeah, you can hear it, and that helps us estimate its angle of approach.
Russian drones may be the biggest threat, but they're not the only one. In fall and winter, slick icy decks turn into death traps. But Western engineers came up with a clever fix to stop sailors from going overboard.
These boats have heated decks. Ice doesn't stick, it melts. That's great for the person standing watch on the upper deck. Your feet don't freeze.
Now imagine Poseidon's pissed, and a brutal sea storm rolls in. Waves are smashing the boat around like a soccer ball. One wrong move, and the boat could flip. So what do? Turn the whole boat into a buoy. Sounds like sci-fi? Not to this sailor.
This boat can capsize, but it'll flip back over quickly. We've even got seat belts. If the boat's rocking hard, the crew straps in to avoid getting thrown around. But yeah, thanks to its tight ceiling, even if it flips, water doesn't get inside.
Another risk during sudden storms is losing your course entirely. To prevent that, Ukrainians rely on Western electronics, but can they handle the waves of the Black Sea?
У нас знаходиться безпосередньо два монітора.
Right here, we've got 2 monitors with digital maps that the boat commander watches. And here's the commander's assistant. From this screen, we control all the systems. The engines, bilge pumps, nav lights. It's all automated. We can program the route on the maps, sync everything, and the autopilot does the rest.
Funny enough, some rules at sea are just like on the highway. Buckle up or risk smashing your face on the windshield. But there's one big difference. This seat comes fully loaded with a suspension system you'll wish you had in your car.
Крісло це оснащено цим стабілізатором, тобто
Each seat has a stabilizer, so the crew sitting in these chairs don't feel the rocking and can still do their jobs.
Subscribe now so you don't miss the next deep dive into Ukraine's war, on land, in the skies, and at sea. In NATO armies, troop safety is the #1 priority. But does that principle carry over to the Navy? After all, escaping a burning tank is a lot easier than getting off a boat in open water. So, did Western engineers think this one through?
Every service member has one of these devices near their sleeping quarters. It's there so they can safely evacuate in case their life is in danger. If the compartment fills with smoke and you can't breathe anymore, you turn it on and get out.
But what if the fire is small and the boat can still be saved? What do you do when the cabin's full of smoke and the flames need to be extinguished fast? Or you'll all go down with the boat.
Оце називається EEBD.
This is called an EEBD, Emergency Escape Breathing Device. It's for getting out in case your main exit is blocked or destroyed. Just about every room on the boat has an emergency hatch. Here's one right here.
If you're the anxious type, maybe sip some calming tea before the next bit. Imagine this. A sailor's trapped on a burning boat, and every exit is blocked. Sounds like game over, right? Not quite. American engineers had a plan B for this nightmare scenario.
Тобто є дихальні пристрої, яких ти
We've got breathing gear specifically for damage control, like dealing with fires or dense smoke. These are larger capacity cylinders, called SCBAS. They're for the firefighters who are putting the flames out.
Safety systems and procedures on these vessels are no joke, and Ukrainians take them just as seriously as their NATO counterparts. When you're fighting a stronger enemy with more gear and more manpower, every soldier's life is priceless.
За кожного переживаєш, тому саме головне.
We really do care about each other. For me, the #1 thing is preserving our people, keeping them alive. #2 is getting the job done right. Every order I give, every decision I make, it affects the results, it affects the team, it affects our mission.
And to make sure morale doesn't crash after cold and grueling nights at sea, meet the officer in charge of psychological resilience. His name? Colonel. The twist? He's got 4 paws and a killer nose.
ще один член екіпажу, його звуть полковник.
He's another member of the crew. We call him Colonel. He's basically our mascot, and he's responsible for keeping spirits up and the whole crew in a good mood.
When morale's high, missions get done. But what exactly are those missions? These days, the image of huge naval battles like in World War I or World War II is outdated. Just a few drones can sink a flagship. That's why both sides now use their navies more cautiously. Ukrainian crews escort civilian ships, clear mines, patrol coastlines, and shoot down airborne threats.
Бойовий модуль оснащений.
You can see everything from here. The combat module's fitted with a Browning machine gun. It has 2 cameras, night vision, and thermal. And all the controls are inside. It's fully computerized.
But on the rivers, things get spicier. There, boats don't just hunt drones, they can drop troops or even fire grenades straight at the enemy.
Патрульний катер, який теж доволі
This patrol boat's pretty well armed. It has 2 machine guns and an MK-19 grenade launcher. It's meant to take out enemy landing parties, infantry, and airborne threats.
Western boats bring different kinds of firepower, but all of it packs a punch. You'll see M240s, M2 Brownings, and DSHKs on the decks. And if that's not enough, they can call in the big guns like the MK-19 grenade launcher, the 2 M3M automatic cannon, or the Sea Defender combat module from FN Herstal. After the full-scale invasion, Ukrainians had to adapt not only on land, but at sea. The Russian Navy proved to be a powerful yet vulnerable enemy. So Ukraine started learning from its mistakes and reshaping its naval strategy to fit modern warfare. The focus? A nimble, hard-to-hit mosquito fleet that's smaller in size but punches above its weight. These vessels get the job done, and they're built to scale. With help from NATO-supplied boats, Ukraine's coastlines are becoming safer, and they're now a vital artery for grain exports. But what do you think is the key advantage of the boats we showed today? Is it their high mobility, advanced electronics, or firepower? Drop your answer in the comments. We welcome the viewers of the ATB Army channel. Today, we're continuing to show you the kind of military hardware that's the absolute top of the top. This is the quietest, the most armored, the heaviest vehicle built for assault operations. It's the machine that goes ahead of the troops, and it happens to be American-made. Meet the M1150 Shredder. With this working tool up front, it clears minefields and breaks open lanes before our guys roll into the fight. Right now, we're with the 48th Kamyanets-Podilsky, Engineer Brigade of the Support Forces, and in front of us is a platoon commander, Oleksandr. Tell us what this machine really is, why it's the quietest, the heaviest, the most armored, and why it's built for leading assault troops into battle.
Yes, what you see here is an engineering assault breaching vehicle. It's built on the chassis of the M1A1 Abrams tank. It carries all the same armor the tank does. These vehicles were built from previously used tanks. The turret was removed, along with the ammo stowage and several other components. Instead, a fully armored cabin was installed, made of two main sections. In the front section, you've got the commander's station, the operator who controls the machine. This armored cabin can rotate horizontally 90 degrees. In the rear section, there are two remote demining launchers, the MaxxPro systems, which blast open lanes in minefields roughly 100 meters, 328 feet long, and about 8 meters, 26 feet wide.
Support the channel with a like and subscribe.
Up front is the driver, who actually maneuvers the machine. And in front of him, you have the hydraulic systems that make the breaching possible. The main working tool is the knife-type mine plow, which clears a lane about 4.5 meters wide, roughly 15 feet. It digs into the ground to a depth of 36 centimeters, about 14 inches.
And about that tool, here's how it looks in the photo. Right now, it's removed for maintenance, but when it's mounted, it looks absolutely epic. So, the heaviest and the quietest?
Yes, exactly. The vehicle weighs 72 tons. That's with the main tool attached and two full MaxxPro sets on board. The engine is a gas turbine diesel, 1,500 horsepower. It runs on Arctic-grade diesel fuel.
Fuel Ukrainian or American?
Fuel is Ukrainian, of course.
And it runs perfectly. In case you didn't notice, the machine is running right now, and you can barely hear it. Even when it moves, it's not very audible.
At up to 50 meters, about 165 feet, you can almost not hear the vehicle at all.
This is an assault breaching machine. It goes first, opens up the obstacles, carves mine lanes. How exactly does it do all that?
With the two MaxxPro launchers, it creates mine-free lanes 100 meters, 328 feet long, and 8 meters, 26 feet wide, using explosive line charge methods.
So basically, it replaces the old Soviet UR-77 Gorenik?
Yes.
But the UR-77 can only make the explosive cleared lanes, while our APC Shredder can also use its mine plow, meaning it replaces the EMR as well?
Yes, it performs essentially three functions. BMR, EMR, and UR type breaching.
So it's a universal machine?
Of course. Of course.
And in this universal package, I'm also seeing, aside from the Mycolix, which we'll get to, a lot of cameras, a lot of observation gear.
Yes, the machine is equipped with 5 cameras, 4 up front, left, right, and center. And there's also a 360-degree front camera with both thermal imaging and night vision. And one more camera in the back so I can...
So you can see when reversing?
Exactly, for reverse driving.
And the driver, he sees this as well?
Yes, the mechanic driver has a monitor that replaces the old trinocular periscope system.
Awesome. All right, let's move over and see how these MICLICS get raised and how they operate. We'll watch the actual detonation later.
The blast will be a bit later. For now, let's go take a look.
How long have you been driving it?
Half a year.
And before this, any experience with Soviet gear, EMR, maybe other engineer vehicles?
Yeah, I had experience with an EMR.
And how does it compare?
Well, how do you even compare it?
Just tell it like it is.
Well, it's like comparing a foreign-made car to a Lada. In general, no contest. Way more comfortable than the Soviet stuff.
72 tons, a massive weight. Do you even feel it while driving?
If you compare it to an EMR, honestly, the EMR feels heavier to operate than the Shredder.
And right now, during the filming, the plow, the removable mine plow, isn't mounted. But you have driven with it, right?
Yes.
Does it feel worse when it digs into the ground? Describe the feeling. How does the machine behave?
At first it loads up. If you start moving from a standstill, it takes that initial load. You give it a bit of throttle, and it moves forward just fine, as long as the soil is decent. It goes smoothly, clean, just like it should.
I already saw. It's a unique kind of machine. For people who complain that an automatic gearbox in a civilian car only has 2 pedals, here you've got 1. How does that even work? 1 pedal? How many gears? And this handlebar looking thing, it's not a steering wheel, not exactly a yoke. Explain it, compare it.
You can actually compare the steering to a moped. Seriously, like a motorcycle. Same deal, throttle on the handle, but here you have it on both sides. The gearbox is automatic, right under your hand. Very convenient. Just put both feet down and control everything from there. You don't need to reach all over the cabin to switch anything. Everything's clean, everything's neat. Everything just works.
And that's how today you can take a ride on an M1 Abrams, but in the form of the M1150 Shredder assault breaching machine. Let's see how it moves. Gear engaged. And forward we go. Perfect, simple, comfortable, and honestly, surprisingly gentle. I've got experience on every Soviet tank, on BMPs, on American gear. And this thing stops incredibly softly. A beautiful machine. The dust kicks up so hard that even 100 meters, 328 feet, away from these 20-ton, 40,000-pound beasts, it crunches on your teeth. And that's just the warm-up. We just heard a mine go off. A simulated hit on the vehicle. Now, they're about to evacuate it. This is basically a crash test for demining machines. Before they're allowed onto an actual minefield, they have to withstand 5 blasts, each equivalent to 6 kilograms, 13.2 pounds, of TNT. That's just a bit less than the explosive force of a 155mm shell used in artillery and howitzers. Meaning the tests are brutally powerful and extremely thorough. The proving ground is divided into several lanes for large, medium, and small machines. Right here, they test the smallest ones. And this little guy is what they call a sapper's helper. It can pull munitions off a section of land, but right now they're checking how it handles vegetation. Grass, small trees, bushes, all that. That's why this lane is called the Green Aggression Zone. According to government data, more than 67,000 square miles of our land have been affected by the war. The most contaminated areas are the fields. They're literally seeded with large anti-tank mines. Machines like these, big, tough, purpose-built, are what can make these lands safe again. But before that, they have to pass survivability trials on the range. This lane is called the Productivity Zone. Here, they check how deep the machine can dig into the soil to reach buried explosives. Right now, we're watching the Turkish machine operate. After it, the Croatian, the Swiss, and the Ukrainian ones will run. Behind the machines, standing at a distance, are the operators. Tense, focused, holding their remote controls. Every manufacturer wants their machine to clear the obstacle course better than anyone else. As soon as the participants finish, an inspector heads out to evaluate the results.
2 anti-tank mines on every lane. Now our expert group will walk through and check whether all the planted explosive objects were destroyed. After that, we can make conclusions about how effectively each machine performed.
One of the biggest machines here is the MV-10 Demoning Vehicle, a Croatian design. It cracks anti-tank mines like sunflower seeds. And it does that with not one, but 2 full rows of insanely strong metal teeth.
This is a hammer-type tool. We've got chains here, with hammers at their ends. That's basically the main working component. The first thing that contacts any explosive device. And behind it, we have a milling tool that gives us a greater average penetration depth.
The main advantage of this system is its reliability. The chains stay extremely rigid at high RPM, but if the machine suddenly hits a mine, the hammer just bounces off. That reduces the cost of replacing damaged parts. They're basically consumables, like surgical gloves. The same system is used in its younger brother, the MV4, the smaller version of this giant.
Look here, you see? If you place them like this, the bodies practically overlap. There's full coverage, down to this little petal-shaped section of the working tool.
The MV4 is one of the most common demining machines in the world. It can work through narrower lanes than its bigger brother.
We're considered the Rolls-Royce of mechanized demining systems. They can withstand any explosive device. You don't need to repair them.
After the Yugoslav wars, Croatia, just like Ukraine now, was heavily mined. So local engineers had to find a way to clear land fast and efficiently. And they invented these machines. They've worked in Iraq, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Azerbaijan, and now they're running across our fields too. In just 3 years, they cleared 7.7 square miles of land and neutralized 9,000 explosive hazards. But here in Ukraine, their work has a new, unique twist. Recently, these machines began being manufactured here. So now they're nearly 1/3 Ukrainian-made.
We took our entire base technology, and now they're localizing and producing all the parts of the working module. We hope to reach 50% localization by the end of next year.
One of the Swiss manufacturers has taken the same path. Their milling heads are extremely effective at grinding down bushes and tree remnants in forest belts. But that's not all.
We've also got additional equipment for knocking down trees. Here in Ukraine, we remove trees thicker than 15 centimeters, about 6 inches in diameter.
The eyes of this machine are its built-in cameras.
These cameras are especially useful in forest belts, where there's a ton of dust.
Swiss demining vehicles are already serving with the State Emergency Service. And they're not alone. Every year, this fleet keeps growing.
Right now, Ukraine has more than 200 mechanized demining machines like the ones behind me, working daily in the fields. If we talk numbers and cost, the average price starts around 700,000 USD and can go sky high. Some of these machines literally cost several $1,000,000.
This is the Kharkiv region, fields where fierce battles raged just 3 years ago. Every square kilometer here is packed with explosives.
Grads, uragans, remnants of tank HEAT rounds. All of that came from this one field.
Stepping off the road is dangerous. Under almost every bush, there's either a mine or a booby trap.
This is what a triggered OZM-72 anti-personnel mine looks like. They call it the Widowmaker. It jumps up to about 90 centimeters to 120 centimeters, 3 to 4 feet, and sprays fragments in every direction. See this metal shield? On the left side of the working module, a mine like this detonated, right in the tree line over there, a bit further to the right, and you can see the holes from the fragments.
This shield is from the Slovak demining machine Bozina. Ukrainian specialists studied its weaknesses and used that knowledge when designing their own machine. And you can tell it's Ukrainian developed even from the frame alone. The only foreign parts here are the American engine. Big, powerful, beautiful. The Italian track system and the Danish hydraulics. Everything else is purely Ukrainian. And combined, it delivers incredible performance. This machine can bring back to life up to 3,000 hectares, 7,400 acres, a day. For scale, that's roughly the area of 4 football fields cleared in a single day. The machine was developed by the Kramatorsk Heavy Machine Tool Plant, known primarily for producing the Bodana self-propelled howitzer. Right now, it's being tested and tuned to match the needs of sappers and the realities of different terrain.
Kyiv region. That's mostly sand. Mykolaiv region. The clay there is so dense it clogs everything. Constant dust. We moved here to Kharkiv region because everything happens at once. Mixed soil, constant machine activity, each unit accompanied by a drone. Lots of frequencies interfering with comms, plus EW systems blasting all the time. Alarms or no alarms. And for us, it was extremely important to see how communications hold up. Another key thing, our working width is 2 meters 65 centimeters, about 8.7 feet. It's the widest among all machines operating in Ukraine. That means with every pass, the machine clears a larger area.
Under the hood, aside from the engine, are the electronic brains and modern filters.
This is the cleaning system. See how much soil is in here? It's designed so that the dirt lands here first, instead of clogging the main filter. And this part, we call it the BBQ grill.
Now it's time to see it in action. By safety rules, the operator and I must stay at least 100 meters, 328 feet, behind the machine, basically right behind its shield. At first glance, it all looks pretty simple. You know how, as a kid, some of us wanted to drive a tank? A toy one? Or a video game one? Well, this is that dream come true. But you need to get used to it. Nothing like playing with a controller at home. Alright, attention. It's about to turn. Nice. After a few months of these tests and refinements, the machine goes for certification. But how do Ukrainian machines perform in real combat conditions?
These machines you're seeing now, these are the first serial production demining machines developed and built in Ukraine. The machine withstood 5 blasts, each equivalent to 6 kilograms, 13.2 pounds, of TNT, exactly as required, and kept working afterwards. And actually, the machine that went through all those tests, it's right behind us.
This model was unveiled only in May, and now it's already out here clearing our fields. It's a design from a Kharkiv-based company. 80% of its components are Ukrainian-made. The only imported parts are the engine, the tracks, and the hydraulics.
We know our fields, we know our soils. We dealt with all this even before the full-scale invasion, and we work directly with our state emergency service, the armed forces, the military civil administration, and humanitarian demining operators. Together with them, we design and build new solutions that are more convenient and more effective specifically for Ukrainian terrain.
Before getting into demining vehicles, this company produced agricultural machinery, but demand forced this sharp pivot. They studied munition types, dove into the engineering, and built their debut invention. And now it's working out in the field too. The MR3200 machine is built, you won't believe it, on the base of a tractor.
It's got a modern engine and a completely different transmission. This is our first mechanized demining machine. Its main task is to destroy high vegetation while simultaneously neutralizing anti-personnel mines without damaging the machine itself.
But this machine only supports the big one. It doesn't replace it. The smaller unit preps the ground and eliminates threats for the sappers, and then the big one fully conducts the demining.
Right now, 3 such machines are working with a humanitarian demining operator, the Humanitarian Safety Team in Kharkiv region. They're finishing work on this field of 150 hectares, 370 acres, and are already moving on to the next fields, the next plots of land.
Today, Ukraine has the largest fleet of demining machines in the world. But to fully clear all liberated territories, we need far more of this equipment. Because even though demining work never stops, the amount of contaminated land that still remains is anything but small.
As of today, 770 square miles of territory have been confirmed, free of evidence of contamination and returned to civilian use. But the area of potentially contaminated territory is 52,900 square miles.
So the state keeps balancing between Ukrainian and foreign technologies to clear farmland as fast as possible and bring safe life back to lands scarred by the war. And what people once struggled with for centuries, these machines now help accomplish hundreds of times faster. Just to look at this thing, the British L-119, sleek, compact, and, according to many Ukrainians, the main rival to the Soviet D-30. On paper, it's a modest little howitzer. In reality, it's become one of the most argued about guns in the entire war. But let's be honest, it's easy to admire Western tech when it's parked clean on a test range. Try using it in a war where the barrel never cools down, and suddenly all that NATO precision starts sweating. When Ukrainian gunners got their L-119, they also got some quick training abroad. 6 days in Germany, because apparently that's all it takes to learn how to run an artillery piece in the most intense war of the 21st century. The instructors, mostly Americans, were confident, until someone asked how the gun behaves after firing 200 shells a day. The answer? Pour some water on it. Half an hour later, the same trainer admitted they'd never fired that much in their lives. Welcome to Ukraine, where the manual ends and the real test begins. British and American forces normally use the L-118 and L-119 to support airborne or light infantry units. The difference between them is simple: ammo. The L-118 fires 105mm rounds only the British have in stock, while the L-119 is NATO compatible. That's why Ukraine got it, because when half the world wants you to win, you'd better have a gun that can use everyone's shells. And in this war, one rule always applies: the more artillery you've got, the safer your infantry feels. For the crews behind those guns, that's not a slogan. It's a daily weight. Every shell that lands on target means someone else gets to live another hour. So yeah, handing Ukraine the L-19S was a smart call. And if you think so too, well, hit that button, because apparently algorithms care about artillery support these days. Ammo, though, is just half the battle. The real question is, can the gun survive the punishment Ukraine puts it through? The Americans who trained the crews weren't sure, but the Frontline figured it out fast. Ukrainian gunners ended up firing 50 to 100 rounds a day, sometimes over 200. One crew even set a record during the Wagner breakthrough, blasting over 200 shells in a single day to hold their line. Officially, the L-118's fire rate is 6 rounds per minute for 2 minutes, then 3 per minute for sustained fire. In real combat, that's more like as long as it doesn't melt. During the Falklands War, British troops fired 400 shells per day from this same design, so it's safe to say the L-119 can take a beating. When compared to Soviet 122mm systems like the D-30 or the self-propelled Vozdika, the L-119 looks modest, but its secret weapon isn't the size of the shell, it's the barrel. The thing is built for accuracy, and that's exactly what counts when every round matters. The D-30 can spit fire all day, but after decades of service, its barrels are worn and tired, the kind that turns precision into approximation. That's where the L-119 shines. The tighter barrel makes it far more accurate, especially against fortified positions. And when you've got limited shells, accuracy isn't just a nice feature, it's survival. Now, before anyone starts flexing about explosive weight, yes, the 105mm round carries less punch than a 122mm shell with up to 4 kilograms of explosives, but one precise hit beats a dozen misses any day. Soviet guns might throw more metal, but that doesn't make them smarter. Another advantage: the L-119's low silhouette. Smaller means harder to spot, and that's a big deal when Russian drones are hovering 24/7. The gun can be deployed and packed up fast, the kind of grab your stuff and vanish speed that keeps you alive when the sky's full of buzzing death. And here's something unexpected. It's quiet. For a howitzer, that's rare. Compared to the Soviet gear that rattles your skull and rings your ears for hours, the L-119 barely whispers. Even Russian intercepts have picked up their confusion. It's coming from somewhere, but we have no idea where. When your enemy can't locate you, that's the kind of silence you want. At night, the gun gets even stealthier. Unlike the D-30, which lights up like a fireworks show with every shot, the L-119 barely flashes. Ukrainian crews were shocked. You can barely see the muzzle blast even in total darkness. It doesn't give away your position, and that's worth more than any fancy camouflage net. Then there's the weight, or rather, the lack of it. The L-119 weighs around 1,900 kilos, about 4,200 pounds, nearly a ton lighter than the D-30. That means fewer logistics headaches and a lot more flexibility. Western armies usually tow it with trucks or light tactical vehicles, but it's light enough to move by hand. 2 soldiers can spin it around if they have to. You can even sling it under a UH-60 or haul 2 of them at once with a CH-47. If the helicopter can't land, just airdrop it. Ukraine's not doing that yet, but the mobility pays off, especially when it's mounted to a Humvee. Fast, small, efficient, everything Soviet guns aren't. In this war, sitting still is dangerous. That mobility matters when Russian FPVs and cab bombs are constantly hunting artillery positions. When a Humvee pulls up and someone yells "cab incoming," your survival rate drops to pure luck. FPV drones prioritize artillery and vehicles, so staying mobile isn't a tactic, it's a necessity. Distance from the front used to matter. Not anymore. FPVs reach farther every month, hitting D-30s and L-119s alike. Whether you're 12 or 15 kilometers away, you're still a target. So it's better to stay sharp and mobile than sit back and pretend you're safe. Maintenance-wise, the L-119 is as low drama as artillery gets, and if something serious happens, it goes back to the company for repairs. That reliability is part of why Ukrainian crews actually enjoy using it. It just works. The gun first showed up in Ukraine in 2022 and has seen both defensive and offensive use since then. It's most effective against infantry and stationary targets, buildings, equipment, or clusters of troops. A shell takes roughly 30 seconds to travel 10 kilometers, which makes hitting moving targets tricky. But with help from drone operators feeding live coordinates, Ukrainian gunners have managed to score hits on ATVs, motorcycles, even tanks. Not bad for a towed gun designed decades ago. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's allies have delivered around 50 L-119 howitzers to the front. That's not a massive number compared to Soviet stockpiles, but each one has pulled far more than its weight. They were deployed almost immediately, often attached to airborne and assault brigades where mobility is everything. These aren't the kind of units that wait around. They move, strike, and vanish. The L-119 fit perfectly into that rhythm. Of course, every gun has its own personality. Some came straight from long-term storage, others had already seen decades of service in NATO armies. A few even arrived with little quirks, tired recoil systems, worn sights, barrels that had already fired thousands of rounds in training. And the Ukrainians quickly learned that every shot comes with a trade-off. The more the gun fires, the faster that precision slips away. Heat and stress eat the steel, and accuracy slowly fades. To keep the fleet alive, Ukraine teamed up with the gun's original creator, BAE Systems. The British defense giant opened a local branch specifically to handle the L-119's maintenance, spare parts, and even to begin producing components inside Ukraine itself. That's a quiet but strategic win. It means the country can repair and potentially rebuild its artillery without waiting for a shipment from across the continent. In wartime, self-reliance isn't a luxury. It's survival. And this cooperation with BAE sends a clear message. Towed artillery still has a future. That partnership isn't just about fixing guns. It's about building a long-term capability, one that might eventually extend to upgrading or even assembling new L-19s locally. The idea is simple. The closer the production line is to the front, the faster you can replace what's lost. In a war of attrition, turnaround speed often matters more than innovation, and this shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Ukraine's frontline experience has forced NATO to rethink decades of assumptions. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, most Western militaries were quietly retiring their towed artillery in favor of shiny self-propelled systems. It made sense on paper. Bigger armor, more protection, faster relocation under counter-battery fire. But then the drones came, and that neat theory crumbled fast. The same armor that kept crews safe from radar-guided shells now makes them easy prey for cheap FPVs. Massive, expensive self-propelled guns turned into oversized targets with bullseyes painted on their turrets. The logic flipped almost overnight. Smaller and lighter suddenly meant smarter and safer. That's where towed guns like the L119 stepped back into the spotlight. They're compact, easy to camouflage, and store their ammo separately, meaning a drone hit won't turn the entire crew into fireworks. The gunners can dig in, cover their position with camouflage, and literally disappear into the terrain. When it's time to shoot, they roll out, fire a few rounds, and melt back into cover before counter-battery radar even registers them. And there's more. Towed systems are cheap to produce, easy to train on, and simple to fix in the field. No complicated engines, no hydraulics, no electronics that fry after one blast wave. In a long war, simplicity wins. You can build 10 L119 for the cost of a single high-end self-propelled gun. And when the enemy destroys one, you don't hold a memorial service. You just roll out the next. So no, the L119 isn't glamorous. It doesn't look intimidating on parade, and it won't impress anyone at a defense expo. But it's tough, dependable, and brutally effective when it counts. It's the kind of artillery that keeps soldiers alive not because it's flashy, but because it works. Every single day. So if you've made it this far, go ahead and drop a like. Not for the algorithm, but for the crews who'll spend tonight under camouflage netting, cleaning barrels, tightening bolts, and getting ready to fire again before sunrise. And that leaves the final question. What matters most in artillery? Sheer firepower, mobility, or the kind of rugged simplicity that keeps you fighting when everything else breaks? Let us know what you think in the comments. Because in this war, even the quietest gun still speaks loud and clear.